Welcome back to part 3 of the solo YouTube exclusive podcast about the Stranger Things music. 1 episode per season, 11 plus music moments from the season, mostly the score, but we'll be throwing in the big needle drops here and there as well. I love the show. I love the music. There's really, I don't even care if a single person listens to this. Actually, I want just one person to listen to it and love it. And if you are that person, let me know. It's like a dump. Like, I just got to put it all out here. We do have a real podcast. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, where myself, my beautiful wife, Kathleen, my brother, Kirk, we go through the past, seasons 1 through 4, and we're now looking forward to season 5. So check that out. But here, season 3, baby. Consumer brightness, body whore blood, and mall core shimmer. And we've got to start it off with the first track that's on the score album, Starcourt. And now we shimmer. Reminder, it's going to get really annoying that I play like 15 seconds of the song and then it fades and stops. It's a tough listen, I know. But I have compiled all the songs on an Apple Music playlist linked within the comments of the YouTube. I'll try to get on Spotify as well. And just go listen to them. I encourage that. So that's just going to get annoying. Rip that Band-Aid off. Starcourt. Shimmer. We've started in season 1 with like a fuzzy analog, and we've now moved into much smoother, softer, more corporate, more studio tones. We took a progression in season 2. Now we're really there. We're at the mall in the 80s, but it's still those analog synthesizers. They didn't go digital as the actual 80s did. They're still using those, Prophet, synthesizers, the same idea around the gear, and really the whole score by Kyle Dixon and Michael Stan is about vintage gear. And the way that they produce it is what is changing. Just a little bit less of that, tape effect and a little bit more of a modern mix, or even more of an 80s mix. But, I mean, look at this. We've got just straight drums in this song. Like, they're obviously not real drums. They're synthesized drums, but one of the hallmarks of the score to this point is how infrequent they're using any kind of drum machine or percussive element at all. A very minimalist type of thing. So, I mean, we've got a drum machine roll. This is something totally different. It's the mall. It's the 80s. It's the cool mall. The teenagers are there. They're having fun at this new thing, and it's the center of America. It's the cool place to be. It's mid-80s pure totality exemplified neon food court of the mall. And what are we hearing? The Dixon-Stein score. That's a huge win for the composers. Yeah, no one else probably gets this way, but I always feel like competitive on their behalf. Kyle Dixon and Michael Stein. The score, placed in a spot where maybe there could have been a needle drop, Joy Division or The Clash, or how easy would it have been to pan through the mall with a Duran Duran song, or the Cars or the Talking Heads or something like that. Would have been way more expected. Instead, Dixon and Stein, they get that moment. They scored that moment. That's a win for the score guys. So, and yet another new element, right? Because we are building throughout the seasons. Like, just as the kids are growing, so too is the score, and just like kind of the palette. I don't know what the right word is, but just the language of sound. We added in, like multiple different things in season 2, from the metallic clang of the digging and the growing and the evil plant, like kind of evilness. And then we also had that, guitar synth, grimy Chicago stuff as well. Now in season 3, we add this shimmer. We add this like real polish, this real like cool teenager in the middle of the 80s sound. And we're also adding the meaty, drippy body horror, just goopy stuff, which I love, and best exemplified by a score track called Rats. I just love that. I know there's a lot of like 80s horror classics, and that's probably what this is most meant to exemplify. But for me, it reminds me of something even more classic, like 50s, like Twilight Zone, classic horror films. Like I'm talking like when films just started to become color, like in the 50s and 60s. That's what it always reminds me of. And this is, another variation. If you listen to the whole track of Rats, it's another variation of the Upside Down theme, just with squishy, presumably synthesized rats exploding and dragging their bubbly blood bag bodies across the ground to become one with the meat flare. The track kind of slowly slows down too. The tempo just kind of keeps ratcheting down, and it's just a gross use of tempo because it's like the rat is dying. The heartbeat is just boom, boom. It's just disgusting, but it's awesome. Dixon and Stein called this. They joked that this was a sampled Slurpee, and then once you hear that, you're like, oh, okay, it kind of does sound like that. It's actually like a modular synth, and this is how they get just this alive sound out of the way they filter and prod and envelope and just do stuff with the oscillators and with the sounds in those vintage synths. But on the theme of body horror, looking for things that make them uncomfortable is what they said. They wanted a sound that would like make them, and that's what they were going to pass on to the audience. I got to play like a couple of these because each rat in this track is like slightly different. There's the ones we heard, like the normal Slurpee, but we also get like this like electrified Slurpee rat. So you can hear the upside down, theme coming in there. It's like the rats are being killed, to the beat, to the melody. And as the voltage starts to go through the Slurpee, it comes down so slow to the rat is just barely moving. Like it's just squished down and sticking to the ground and just it's peeling itself off. It's just, what a great track. Rats. We go from that naturally to Madonna's Material Girl.
Cold hard cash is always Mr. Right, 'cause we are living in a material world, and I am a material girl. You know that we are living in a material world, and I am a material girl.
The Madonna montage as Max and 11 shop at the mall. They try on things, they enjoy them all. They use 11's powers to explode a drink all over a rival girl who looked at them and who also betrayed Dustin at the snowball. It's the same girl that they do that to. Little Easter egg nugget. So as I mentioned, maybe I didn't mention it, but I'm mentioning it now. Season 3 is heavy on needle drops, especially early in the season. Needle drops meaning like real songs, pop songs, soundtrack songs, as opposed to the score. And that's why I focus on the Starcourt theme first, because I'm Team Dixon Stein, right? And the Rats cue is iconic. But if there's one like real story of the beginning of season 3 musically, it's how many needle drops we're getting, because we're really setting the scene of like truly pop culture. I mean, the kids are teenagers now. They are the peak of the mall culture. And we're getting everything. I mean, Mike is apparently loving the new Corey Hart record. Billy is moving in slow motion at the pool to the cars moving in stereo. Nancy's delivering lunch to Huey Lewis. Mrs. Wheeler's getting ready for an affair, listening to I just died in your arms tonight. Mr. Clark's jamming out to Weird Al. We got Foreigner, Cold as Ice coming up after L's gonna dump your ass. It's just chock full. And this is like the core piece, the Madonna montage. It's representing both the peak of this tone, early season 3, and this is also a moment where a lot of fans are like, what am I watching here? Because I feel like, and a lot of people felt, and I was definitely one of them on first view, like while Ghostbusters was a little on the nose, the show seemed to be in on the joke. But here, like 11 and Max at the mall shopping and dancing to Madonna, it's kind of like, does the show know that this is like kind of weird, kind of on the nose? It wasn't clear. But I think season 3 does earn our trust back. From the sauna test all the way to the Battle of Starcourt, the tone change was jarring, but it was worth it to get that awesome blockbuster with heart, that action and fun that we end up getting. So it's much better on rewatch. But a lot of people felt that way when they first saw this montage of Material Girl, and it took me quite a few rewatches to not be with them, but I'm not anymore. I think for you to think that this is too on the nose means you have to think that this song, that Madonna actually wrote this song as a girly girl's anthem with a genuine love of shopping. Like that's kind of the avenue that I fall into. Like Madonna wasn't dressing up like Marilyn Monroe, Diamonds Are Girl's Best Friend, and doing that out of pure like tribute to shopping. That's not Madonna. She wanted the lecture from the stuffy adults about materials aren't everything, but the kids knew that's not what this is about. Madonna Material Girl is about being cool, about being hot, about getting things for it, and it's just cynical. It's a cynicism of, I might as well get some stuff with my hotness and I love it and it's my life, like that's Madonna. That's, you don't want to pigeonhole, a song into one thing or the other, but it's definitely not genuine love of shopping. So I don't know. If you can think of it that way, maybe that can help you with a Material Girl montage that sometimes feels a little out of place in Stranger Things 3. I think it works perfectly because they're 15. Because this is what they would do. This is how they would feel and how they would love it. 11 and Max, that's the magic. And when you look back on that magic, it would be like that. I don't know. But it's a great song, first of all. So, points there. All right. We are shifting tones. Much like season 3, we're going from just mutilated blood bag rats exploding to shopping with Madonna, back to deep somberness of a lost childhood as Will Byers realizes his childhood is gone and destroys Castle Byers to the tune of the score track Destroying the Castle. Another classic texture over melody track. It's really just that those 3 kind of sweeping chords sustaining over each other. This one calls back a lot more to season 1 and 2, which makes sense, since Will is reminiscing and mourning the loss of a childhood he maybe never had, right? There's these glossy chords, these pedal pads, there's a little bit of boom, 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 a little bit of forward movement, but it's really building on itself. It's a great track to listen to the whole way through. So are all of these on season 3, by the way. The season 3 score feels like the most independent listening friendly album. Like if you want to buy one on vinyl, this is the one, because they're all so good front to back. They have a beginning, middle, and end. This one does as well. And the building on itself, it's not just random. There's like these big tails of reverbs and filters that we've talked about before. They bleed into the next chord stylistically. Like they're bringing the echo. This may not be the right terminology, but the remnants, the echo of the previous, hit on the synthesizer, and then they're putting that echo through a different filter or different, I don't know if I'm using the right terms, but they're thinking about that stuff. It's building in a way, it shimmers, it strums. It's just amazing track. And they had said they were working, towards more of a standalone record, and this is one of them for sure. Rats is great to listen. Got to listen to every Rat, and this one is also another one. Yet another example this season of a track that both reminds us of the warmth, the analog synthesizer that we all got pumped about in season 1, but also taking it another step, shimmering a more of a modern mix. And it's a great track on the score. I cannot recommend the season 3 score enough. Random side note, this song, Destroying the Castle, comes back in the most random spot. Still can't figure out exactly if it means anything, but Joyce and Hopper at the end of the piggyback, in the middle of the action in Russia, and Hopper is telling Joyce like he's going to go spring the trap and go drag a demodog, and then Murray will flamethrow it. As he's explaining to her that it's going to be okay, it's this song. So I don't know how those things are connected, but I don't know. All right, let's keep with the score. Let's go to Boys and Girls. A playful cue. It comes most prominently when Max and 11 and Mike and Lucas are discussing their, respective, middle school boyfriend-girlfriend problems. And it's got those two different synth voices, theoretically representing a boy and a girl. There's a higher one going boop, 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 and a lower one, more bumbling, more stuttering, boom, 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 but they never quite hit at the same time. There's kind of that literal boy and girl pad, or at least that's how I think of it. We haven't really talked about the playful pads part of the score. It's not new to season 3. In season 1, we had Lazy Boy. Which comes while Mike shows 11 around the house. And in season 2, we had Presumptuous. Which, of course, comes when Lucas and Dustin are, collectively courting Max to go trick-or-treating with them. Boys and Girls, much more crisp. Just like a lot of the whole theme of the score check of season 3, it's produced, a little slicker, a little bit crisper, a little bit more upfront, a little bit less of that tape sound, that recorded to tape sound that was so, prevalent in season 1. And it makes sense. We're now in 85. We're at the mall, we're having good times. We're teenagers now, a little bit more the 80s. And it does feel like there's more weight, in the notes. Presumptuous and Lazy Boy are kind of, foggy back there. Boys and Girls are very upfront, like almost as if, someone's just hitting the key harder, boom, 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 just more confident too. It's all synthesized, so there's no one really hitting a mallet, harder like there would be on a piano, but it just feels like it's more prevalent. And one last thing I wanted to call out, kind of in this playful pad, section of the score that kind of goes from season 1 to season 2, season 3, when Mike and Lucas finally do reach out to 11 and Max and say, I know we're having boyfriend-girlfriend problems, but we've got real upside-down stuff. It's going to get serious again. There comes a cue called Code Red, which to me feels like it's more in sync and, more serious, but still those pads are there. I don't know. Maybe I'm just hearing things, but I always feel like that's those same two pads, and they're just getting serious with the imminent threat of the upside down that Will has felt and that 11 has suspected as well. So let's start to talk about that threat, and let's talk about the active battle the track that plays over the fight in the sauna test, and it is called Mirkwood. Those who have heard our previous rewatches know this is one of my favorite score tracks. Again, season 3 score is awesome. This has a beginning, middle, and end. This whole track is amazing. But the way it's used in the sauna test, I don't even know what it is that makes it sound like this way. I don't even know if I want to know. But something on the synths makes it sound like it is dripping electricity. Like there's these cool neon synths that are coming through, but they're dangerous and they are dripping electric water. I don't even know how to explain it. I always think of it as like it's an evil jump by Van Halen. Boot, 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 boot. And there's some distortion to it, some studio wizardry that makes it happen. Because it's all still the analog synthesizers, but this is wider. It's in stereo. I use the dripping a lot, exposed wire, just something in the wake of these synth lines that is just distorted and cool. It's got beef, as I've said. If Duffers asked for bleeding in the form of synthesizers, they got it, in Rats and in this one. But I am like oversimplifying in some way. It's not like that's totally new to season 3. Everything I say, like the metallic, atmospheric part of season 2 and the shimmery, shine and meaty body horror of season 3, it's a progression. When I first rewatched the most recent rewatch that we did, I noticed there is like a kind of Mirkwood-esque track right at the beginning of the entire series, like in the first episode, before the credits roll, before we ever even hear the Stranger Things theme, a track called Lights Out. There's some of that distorted fuzz, that distorted feeling that we get in Mirkwood. Not necessarily the electricity, it's not quite there, but it's definitely closer to season 3 than I'm making it sound. And it's really, that type of sound doesn't really come back in terms of the Demogorgon in season 1. We get replaced by the danger cue, and that's much more of like a sterile, evil foghorn roar. This had some of that buzz, some of that fuzz right at the beginning of the show, and here it is in Mirkwood. So after the battle, we switch gears hard from Mirkwood to an old tune called "We'll Meet Again."
But I know we'll meet again some sunny day. We'll meet again, don't know where, don't know when.
So Kirk called this out as one of his music moments of the entire series in our rewatch. It's a World War II hit for the English singer Vera Lynn. I think recorded in 1939. Tough year. As a song in the 40s, beginning of World War II. The lyrics are hopeful, right? They're dark and they're bittersweet. We're heading off to war is kind of I don't know if that's the purpose of the song, but that's how it was taken by that generation. A generation of young people who were going into a same situation as their parents. It's not like World War II people didn't know that millions of them were about to die because World War I had happened to their parents. So just the kind of the melancholy and just sort of like inevitability that behind this song and behind its popularity is always really interesting to me. And using it in Stranger Things blew my mind. Like, wow, what a pull. I didn't know is that This song also had a second life about 25 years later in the 1960s with the movie Dr. Strangelove, which definitely feels like it's more of the reference. It's a bitter irony track. Spoilers for Dr. Strangelove, but the nuclear bombs go off and this song plays. We'll meet again. That is very cynical, very bitter irony, and it's a famous movie scene. And here we use it as really a reveal / sort of like act break as Billy runs away from the battle and goes back to the warehouse, and it's revealed that there's this army of flayed, standing before the meat flayer. So it's not like bitter irony of nuclear war, but it's also, see ya for Act 2 type of thing. Very cool track, very cool use. The time travel of this is just crazy. I mean, think about this. It's a 1939 wartime ballad used as a homage to a famous 1964 movie in a show that is set in the heart of pop culture of 1985, released on streaming and Netflix in 2019. Like, we are covering a lot of time in reality with this song. So I think that's really cool. Okay, let's go back to the score. Let's go to the first I Love You. There's not a lot of pure romance music in Stranger Things, so this melody always sticks out to me. It never resolves. It's always like these overlapping layers again, but although they're actually descending in terms of musical notes, it feels like they're climbing. Do 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 do. It's a sound sculpture, and the biggest use of this scene, the most famous one to me, is the feel-good scene between Steve and Robin in the bathroom. And no, that's not literal romance, but it's the will they, won't they song. Steve and Robin won't, but you're still left feeling great because they're going to be wonderful friends, right? It's a very happy scene as they make fun of Tammy Thompson. You get this track. And this is also an updated version that we have heard, in season 2. In season 2, this sort of melody is called The First Lie, which is much more in a fog. Let's listen to that real quick, too. So, I mean, go listen to them back to back. It's the same melody, maybe even the same harmony part. The harmony parts do seem a lot louder on The First I Love You, the season 3 version, more in stereo, like I've said before. But it's kind of a perfect progression as well. The First Lie is definitely more wobbly. The oscillator sound is more vulnerable to those filters and envelopes and all that stuff. It's the romance. It's the will they, won't they. You see this all over. Mike and Eleven have this in the epilogue to season 3 when Mike won't say I love you, but Eleven's like, I heard you say I love you, and guess what? I love you too. It's used there. It's also used for Joyce and Hopper as they get quote unquote go on their date in season 4, volume 2, when they are finally reunited and they're about to consummate their reunion before they are interrupted by the phone call. So this is the buildup. There's a little bit of hate to this cue whenever you hear it, and it's some of the airiness of The First I Love You feels like it carried over from another great score track, Ceiling is Beautiful. Check that. I put that one on the playlist. That is the one where Steve and Robin are staring up at the ceiling in the mall. And they're just ready to barf. And that track is also really good. Yet another one on season 3 that you just want to listen to the whole way through. And there's another one, Tammy, which is another great track maybe meant for the Tammy conversation where the first I love you appears. Maybe Tammy was meant for that scene. You can go listen to an alternate reality there, but it's also a great track. Season 3, man. Oh, the score is so good in season 3. Everyone rightfully loves season 1. It is the best one. It's the OG. It's got the hits, but I feel like season 3 is the score for me. Okay, let's keep going. We're heading to the finale. We're heading to the Battle of Starcourt, and we got to talk about what is probably the most surprising thing to ever happen in Stranger Things, which is that in the middle of the action, Dustin and Susie start singing Never Ending Story.
Everywhere, giving in the light. Written on the pages is the answer to a never-ending story. Reach the stars.
Get stuck in your head. That's for sure. 2019, when this came out, this is not a needle drop, right? This is not like Material Girl or any of the other needle drops. This is part of the plot. Characters are singing it. Characters are reacting to characters singing it. This is, and it's such a surprise. And I also don't feel like Neverending Story quite had, it was a popular song in the 80s, of course, but it hadn't really carried over as well to 2019 as even some of the songs that we talk about getting the Stranger Things bump, like The Clash, like Running Up That Hill is going to get in season 4. Neverending Story was probably recognized by the least amount of people at that point, both the song and the movie. But now, it's just part of Stranger Things. You're never going to forget it now. You get the number one emotion most people got was unexpected. We're in the middle of a battle over here. And if you've heard me talk about this song in our previous podcasts, Neverending Story hits so hard because it is sandwiched by this absolutely insane score track called Planck's Constant. The successor to Time for 187, the van flipping scene in season 1. It is a rapid fire arpeggio. It is just like they've turned some sort of setting up to 11. It's not particularly melodic. If there's even any melody in some of the notes at all, it's almost atonal in certain places. The sound is very modern. There's no vintage hiss. It is just giving you a heartbeat of just blah, 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 and it's building that tension of the action, but it's also clearing our melodic palette for Neverending Story. It is such an important part of the Neverending Story that we're not hearing music before or after, and not to say that Planck's Constant isn't music, but we're not hearing anything particularly sweet or syrupy or with any melody. It's a crust. And it's going for a long time. Like on the track or on the actual album from Dixon and Stein, the season 3 score, Planck's Constant is 1:19. But we get it for over a minute before we get to Dustin and Susie singing Neverending Story. And then after Dustin and Susie, we get it for 2 minutes. So they're like repeating. I don't know this for sure, but it feels like they took the absolute climax of insanity within Planck's Constant, and they repeat that for like 30 seconds. It's crazy, and it's part of Neverending Story. And I've if you've heard me talk, that is something I've said many times, but I had to include it in this show. So many little things. The show is so crafted with love. I love it. Let's go to the battle. We're in the food court. 11 is laid at the altar before the meat flare by Billy, and we're hearing a song called Dirge. This is the song from the band that Kyle Dixon and Michael Stein were in prior to Stranger Things called Survive. Or I guess they still are in it. They've released albums since the show came out. But this is what the Duffers were into. This is what they heard. This song's from 2012, 4 years before Stranger Things came out. This is what the Duffers wanted. They heard this synth-based band out of Austin, and they're like, that's ours. That's our show. And they used this song in a lot of the, pitching. I don't know what it's called, but they put this track in there to kind of try to explain what they were looking for. And it's nice that they actually got it into the show. And it comes at one of the most magical times of the entire series as Billy shields Eleven from the meat flare. Dirge is playing. It is, it's a funeral. That's what a dirge is. A dirge is a word. It's a type of song. It's like something you play at a funeral. It's a ceremonial, and I find that interesting, and it kind of fits with what's happening. Like the way Billy lays out Eleven at the altar, the way he laid Heather out that feels very ceremonial as well. And ultimately the inevitable for Billy, who does die, it's his funeral that it tracks ultimately as Billy succumbs to 7 tentacles through the chest in a couple of days drinking bleach. The Duffers wanted this song in the first trailer too, I had heard. So I don't know if they petitioned for it, but that's what they had in the first trailer. I encourage you to listen to the song. You can definitely hear where She'll Kill You comes from, where Soldiers comes from. Some of the electric dripping that I was talking about in Mirkwood is in there. It makes sense. It's the same people, right? And it's cool that they got this tip of the cap. Nora Felder, the music supervisor, who deserves a lot of credit for a lot of the songs we've picked out. Should have mentioned her before now. But she said this was a way to honor the artists who made, who helped make the identity of the show, of Stranger Things. So there was another song by Survive used in season 4 when Eleven is in flashback mode in 1979. She's being bullied by 2. That's another Survive song right there. Will there be a trilogy? Will we get a Survive song in season 5? Stay tuned. Really cool use of Dirge. So, spoilers. Hopper dies, quote unquote, and leaves a letter. And it's one of the most heart-wrenching scenes in all of Stranger Things as we hear Hopper's words as Eleven reads the letter. And under it, we get Heroes, which also played during Fake Will's death. So it's the fake death anthem for Stranger Things. Heroes, cover of David Bowie by Peter Gabriel.
I can remember standing by the wall.
Crazy strings, real strings, which have a lot of impact for the same reason that Neverending Story hits so hard because we've been removed of a lot of melody. So does the impact of the lushness of strings when all we've been hearing is 80s pop and this synthesized score. It hits harder. It feels like they pull this out when they want the Spielbergian effect, but not full John Williams. And they have said, the Duffers have said that they wanted the Peter Gabriel cover because of the strings, because the David Bowie cover, the David Bowie original, would be more time appropriate. I think it's a late 70s song. Peter Gabriel Peter Gabriel's a contemporary of David Bowie's, but this recording is 2010 or 2011. it is not back in the Genesis days for Peter Gabriel. He's an old man singing this song. So we hear it when we find the fake Will body, and the kids are feeling like they failed and they're fools for trusting Eleven, and Eleven is feeling like she's blown the chance to show that she can be with these kids and she's a monster again, and feeling all those feelings. that use, is heartbreaking. In season 3, it's such a different use of the same song. It's one of the things that I love about the choice to do the same song. It's about, now the context is like about the future, about who you could be, who you will be through change. It's a bittersweet, triumphant, same song, but totally different use. I would have never thought that. I don't particularly like this version of the song either, but it's used perfectly. I prefer the David Bowie original. Just throwing that out here. I was bubbling to say that, and I feel like I just had to say it. But the lyrics almost kind of changed. Like, we could be heroes when they're finding Will's body and they're feeling despondent and like they failed. That is like, we could have been heroes, but we're not. And in season 3, it's like, who knows who we could be? We could even be heroes. That's just a different tone to the lyrics. Really cool. And I do want to pitch just one thing, Duffers. I know you're listening. I know you've listened all 3 episodes. Listen to tomorrow's as well for season 4. Oasis covers this as well. And it is like a peak prime Oasis, like right in the mid 90s. They cover Heroes. So if we have like a season 5 epilogue, we could get that. We could use the David Bowie version somewhere earlier in like a flashback. We do the Peter Gabriel again for whoever's fake death is next. And then in the epilogue, we use the Oasis version of Heroes. Throwing it out there for consideration. All right. Be back tomorrow. Each episode I'm closing out with a cue that I wish I could have worked into the show. And for season 3, it is Silver Cat Feeds. And this is a kind of another area. We talked about boys and girls and like the pads and stuff. We hadn't quite talked about that area of the score. This is another one of those areas like the solving the mystery tracks. Connect the Dots is a big one from the earlier seasons. They're figuring things out. Silver Cat Feeds plays as Robin figures out the code, right? And they're just, usually in the first season, they're just little detectives, right? All the characters. So it's a cool cue, and I really like it. Here it is. Good night, everybody.